Good morning. Good morning. Morning. Quiet, please. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I would like everyone that can to stand up and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. We do have a quorum for this meeting, and we're going to move right. Well, before we move into the actual agenda, I want to introduce, we have two new board members, and we have one returning board member from years past. Christine, would you introduce yourself, please?
Certainly. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, my fellow residents. I'm Christine Novello. This is my first workshop meeting as a new member of the governing board. My husband and I have, we moved to beautiful Sun City West. It's 7 years ago this week, actually, so, but I'm very pleased now that I've given up full-time employment and retired to be serving you as a part of this governing board, and I look forward to doing that for the next 3 years.
Okay, thank you. Alan.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alan Schlemmer, and my story is very similar to Christine's. My wife and I came to Sun City West in 2015. We did do a 2-year hiatus right after I retired. We thought it would be cool to go visit and live closer to our grandchildren. We quickly learned we'd made a mistake and really missed Sun City West, so, we came back. Yeah, a little crazy, but absolutely love the community, love it here, and I am really honored to be up here, and I'm honored to be working on behalf of all of you. Thank you very much.
And we had an appointment for a director last year, and we appointed Terry Hammond. Terry, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Terry Hammond. I've been here since 2007. I've been on the governing board before, and I kind of like being back again for one more year. It's kind of fun again. And I was also torch chair for quite a few years, so
Okay, thank
welcome
you.
to be back to serve you.
Just a couple housekeeping items here. This is a workshop. It's primarily designed to be a working session where we discuss different topics that come out. We don't vote at this meeting. We only vote at the general meeting or a special meeting, which we'll be having right after this to take care of 2 emergency expenditures that happened over the summer. Comments from the audience are appreciated. The procedure to do this is to get up and walk over to the microphone over here, sign in, give us your name and rec number, and you'll have 2 minutes to give us your comments. This year, we're trying something a little bit different. While this meeting is being broadcast on YouTube, we will take comments from YouTubers. You put it into the YouTube comment thing, and at this meeting today, Alan will be monitoring those and bringing them up so that we can include the people watching at home too. So, now, on to the agenda. First order of business is the June 9th, 2023 GM Workshop Minute Approvals. Are there any changes or corrections? Okay, seeing none, they will stand as written. As we move into new business, the first order of business is a June year-to-date, end-of-year financial review. CFO Cliff Schwan.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Governing Board, Director Hurley. I'm going to go over the June year-to-date or fiscal year 23 financials. Just a note, and on October 24th, we will have the audited financials presented, so I don't anticipate any changes, but that'll be coming up on October 24th. So let's get started. As far as the year, fiscal year 23 goes, coming off a year after a year of COVID, we kind of got back to normal, let's say, and put the budget together for 23, and you'll see we came in pretty much where we expected to come in at for the year. So we'll see. So far this year, we'll present August year to date for this year at Tuesday's B&F meeting. So, but here we are for fiscal year 23. when you take a look at the month of June, we finished at 145,000 ahead of budget on the revenue side, and that was mainly due to golf. And golf really kind of suffered due to some weather events that we had December through February. But the last 2 to 3 months of the fiscal year 23, it really rallied, and people got out there and really enjoyed themselves, and it showed on the financial statement. On the expense side, finished 34,000 favorable for the month of June. So taking a look at the June operating cash outflow, budgeted 514, came in better than that at 335 for 179,000 favorable. Taking a look at year to date, for the year, we finished 790,000 favorable on the revenue column for the year, mainly due to golf and the ancillary fees associated with golf and Sports Pavilion. Sports Pavilion did well too. Finished a little ahead in membership. That was mainly due to tenant revenue. On the expense side, we had some challenges, some kind of unforeseen things throughout the year, and we talked about those, mainly due to minimum wage and health insurance on the labor side. And then, utilities came in higher, rates went up, and utilities came in higher, especially towards the end of the year as it got warmer and in the winter months where it was colder. Overall income from operations, we finished at a little over $1.5 million, 1.56 million, and that was 395,000 favorable to budget. When we compare that to prior year, we really was kind of an anomaly on the golf rounds. We finished with 333,000 golf rounds, and in 23, we finished with 323. It would have been nice to see what would have happened had we not had those weather events in the winter. But that being said, that was the major difference on the revenue side. And then on the expense side, we had increased labor costs and inflationary things that impacted negatively on us as far as increased costs year over year. But still finished at $1.5 million, but $1.5 million off our prior year. So some of the things I just discussed, we had, of course, the wage adjustments that we budgeted for those, the increase in health insurance costs, utilities, just inflationary and, increased costs in that area. And then on the supplies and equipment, we had inflation really impacted those areas as well. And then on the other charges, our bank charges and service contracts, all that impacted by inflation. So when we take a look at the summary of capital related items, the main things here are our investment income and our APFs to pay attention to. And if you look at the APFs, we finished for the month of June. APFs rallied as well. We finished 145,000 ahead of budget. And on the investment income side, we had 30,000 increase in investment income, which was kind of a mantra that happened throughout the year as the short-term yields increased. And if we take a look at the realized gain, we basically finished the month at a $54,000 valuation change to the good. Comparing that to prior year, we finished the year at 1,115 APFs. Even with the APF increase, that still created a negative variance for us to our budget. because we had budgeted 1,200, so a $367,000 unfavorable on the APF side. Good news on the investment income side is that with those yields coming in better than budgeted, we finished $267,000 ahead of what we had anticipated on our investment income, which offsets that unrealized, realized gains and losses for the year. So finished the year even on the investments side, and in a kind of up and down year. That was some good news for us, and we'll continue to see that this year. We're tracking at 80+ thousand per month in investment income now. And then, so finished the year, 425,000 unfavorable to budget on the capital section. If we compare that to prior year and look at APF fees, there's a big variance there, and that obviously impacts our reserve fund. But we finished the year 1.1 million off of prior year. Prior year we had 1,640 APFs versus 1,115. So that really shows on that line item. And then if we take a look at the investment income, there's that difference that I talked about, 294,000 favorable over prior year on the investment income side. And then the stocks performed, or let's call it the reserve fund investments, performed much better in 2023 than they did in fiscal year 2022. Total favorable to prior year in the summary of capital section of 2.259 million. So some of those impacts year over year in the capital related section, again, APFs. So, I said 1613. So finished 500 APFs off of prior year, a 31% decrease in APF transactions. That was offset by the increase in the APF fee, but still pretty sizable impact at 1.1 million. And then that reserve fund valuation change and investment income I already talked about. So we take a look at the total revenues over under expenses, finished the year at 30,000 unfavorable variance to budget. And compared to prior year, finished favorable at 680,000, with the impact mainly in the investment valuation change. Looking at the capital spend, we had budgeted 10.8 million for the year, and the savings on that was roughly 92,000. Well, I'm sorry, the actual savings is 92,000. We're projecting it to be 64,000 by the time we close out all the POs that we encumbered into this year. So this is a list of all the capital items. Items shaded in yellow are completed and paid for, and you can see those items basically that are being carried forward that are unhighlighted. And so taking a look at the allowances, we had a pretty significant allowance spend last year, budgeted 400,000, came in at 394,000. And this is a list of those items. A couple of notes in here. One, we had two projects, the library project and the ARC project, totaling about 30,000 that we were reimbursed for those by those clubs. So we actually got reimbursed for that allowance spend. And then really good news is the underground feeder circuit. Those are the two electric lines that fried back in April and May. We submitted those to our insurance company, and they covered them So we just received a check for that, and we'll post that this year in down in the capital section under club funded area. So that'll go right back to the reserve. So I talked a little bit about encumbered items, and so we just put this list together just to give everybody an update on what we carried forward into this year, especially with the sizable Grandview project still underway, and roughly 3.4 million we have to encumber that, and we did, along with these other items, a total of 4.3 million, and a lot of these have been completed already. And we're getting really close on Grandview, but this number was incorporated into our reserve fund entry with CLA, which they'll talk about October 24th, and we kept this money aside to pay for those projects in the operating fund. You'll hear me say it all the time. It's all about the reserve fund and the FFB percent. So how did we finish? We finished at budget, which was 50% FFB for the year, with all the impacts that we talked about, positive and negative in all those areas, off of budget. And I will say that we are in the process, as we go through the capital process, and as we set the baseline every year for the FFB, the fully funded balance, in February. So that number is going to change. It's going to change with adjustments that we've made, projects that we've closed and reset, values put in there. So we'll be coming out with that update. But for the year, based on the fully funded balance that we set in February, we finished budget where we thought we would finish, which is good news. That's it.
All right, are there any questions for Cliff from the directors? Harry?
One question I've got, Cliff, is, I think it's on your page 11.
Oops.
Anyway, it's talking about the capital, and it showed this year that we still got a $266,000 loss in our investments on top of the $3.6 million last year. What's Cap Trust telling us? Because preservation of capital, which we discussed heavily last year, is one of our items. And if we lost another 266, gives me a little heartburn.
Okay, that's a good question. The strategy continues. There's nothing we're going to do in the short term, sell stocks, things like that. There's nothing we're going to do, sell our bond portfolios. There's nothing we're going to do in the short term to reverse that. The strategy is to take the investment income. So when you take the 266, it's actually offset by the investment income of 267. So the net, we finished the year with a push, okay, when you add that back, because those go back and get reinvested and get reinvested in at a different portfolio, or reinvested based on how the market's doing and whatever segment that they invest those in. So we are turning it. It is getting turned, and I believe the last time they were here and presented, that question was posed, like what's the turnaround time on that valuation change? And the response to that, I believe, was 3 to 5 years before you turn that around. So without jumping tracks and doing something completely different, I would anticipate on that timeline for that particular valuation change. But they'll be back here in November to give a status update, and could certainly see where we're at then and pose that question.
All right, anybody else? Cliff, I do have a question for you, and this is putting your long-range glasses on. When we started looking at the budget in February, we were looking at some pretty dark clouds on the horizon. We asked to reduce the APS from 1,200 to a little over 1,000, and the golf rounds from 325 down to 315, I think it was the number. I know we've got just a quarter under our belt, but do you see those things turning around?
So we've got 2 months into this year. We're tracking about at budget, maybe a little better than budget. I will say, though, that Grandview's been closed for golf rounds. The bowling alley was closed a little longer than anticipated.
Right.
And APFs were tracking a little bit better. So I would say of all those, APFs is tracking a little better than what we had anticipated for budget. Not huge numbers, but it is coming in better. And then as far as the forecast on that, yet to be seen, I think we got to get, in terms of golf, I think we got to get to January,
Right.
see where we're going to be at.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Do we have any questions from the audience for Cliff's end-of-year report? Okay. Moving right along. The next item of agenda is the Governing Board Code of Conduct. This actually goes back a couple of years, and it was in discussion at the beginning of last year. The board reached consensus on signing just a statement on how we were going to act, serving in the general interest of all members, serving with an understanding of the scope of our responsibilities, serving with professional behavior, and respecting alternative opinions. And I would just like consensus that we move this to the general meeting. We'll have that presented so everybody can sign it. Do I have consensus for that? Okay, we will move it on. Thank you very much. All right, Charter Clubs 3.03, Charter Club Spatialization Requirements Working Group Presentation. Director Leary?
Okay, thank you, Tim. I am not going to actually give the presentation today. Nick Turner, who is the chair of that working group, presented it yesterday to the Properties Committee. He also presented it to the Chartered Clubs Committee earlier this week. The Properties Committee has reached consensus to move it on to the Governing Board. However, the Chartered Clubs Committee has decided they want an extra month to digest the tremendous amount of information that's in this report. So what I will do is just kind of summarize what the working group has done. What the working group was chartered to do was to take a look at, from a strategic high-level basis, what our space utilization reporting requirements are. We were not charged with deciding which club gets which space. That's an operational decision. But what the committee did is they met for 6 weeks, a very intense 6 weeks over the summer, and came up with a list of 10 basic requirements, things like security, data administration, usability, those types of things. That in turn spawned 108 requirements for whatever we decide to do going forward. They also presented 8 options on what we should do with any type of a software product that we might decide to implement. The group was specifically tasked with not evaluating club track. It was to take a higher level step back and see what they could do. So there are 8 options that have specific recommendations. Some were recommended, some were not. And there are also 10 other recommendations that were not tied to options as well. Assuming that the Charter Clubs Committee reaches consensus to move the report to the Governing Board, I will present it most likely next month.
Okay, thank you. You'll be presenting that, if it's available, at the workshop?
Yeah, whatever the next meeting would be, yeah, that's correct.
All right. You also have 3.05 RR&P review plan.
You want to do 3.04?
Pardon me?
You want to do 3.04?
3.04. Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
So 3.04 is basically, we looked at our policy the policy that governs the chartered club committee, and we elected to leave that policy as is, so it stands as it did last year. 3.05, the RR&Ps review plan, we will meet in a second meeting during each of the months of September through December. So the first Chartered Clubs Committee meeting each month will be our regular meeting, where we'll discuss whatever business is before us at that point. The second meeting of the month will be to review the RR&Ps that have been rewritten over the summer by the committee. There will be, at each of the 4 meetings, there will be a schedule of what will be discussed and covered. And by the end of the 4 meetings, we will have covered the entire RR&Ps, at which point we will take a consensus vote on whether to move them to the governing board in January. So that's the plan.
Okay, we have any questions for any of these 3 for Jack? No, okay, we have any questions from the audience? Okay, rolling right along. Oh, we got one, hang on.
Ron Wambach, 100988. I know I've worked with the Charter Clubs Committee in the past on several times, and I appreciate the efforts that they put in this past summer in addressing some of the items that we had raised. Specifically, I'm looking at sports activities, and I'm looking in particular at tennis and the way we've discussed it in the past, and in looking at some progress that's been made with the committee, the Chartered Clubs Committee. I still see a couple of different issues that I don't know what's motivating the changes over the years. Our tournament is like 35 years old. Our league play is about 25 years old. And the RR&Ps as presented put a substantial damper on both of those items. Number one, as it relates to our tournament, which last year raised about $4,000 for Pride and the Posse. And it includes, like a true tournament, not just Sun City West people playing people from other places, but a tournament like the US Open tournament, where somebody from Spain plays with somebody from England, and together they team up and play somebody maybe from the United States, maybe from the United States and Argentina or whatever it is. That's the way our tournament is run for 35 years now. So we have a substantial number of people that come in who don't necessarily play all times with people from Sun City West. They bring in somebody from Grand, and 2 people come over. But now and then, we have people from Grand teaming up with somebody from Sun City West. We have people from Colorado that come down. We have people from relatives that come in from out of state that team up with their relatives that live here. What a wonderful opportunity to showcase our facilities and our community here. These RR&Ps right now say, no, we can't do that anymore. We have to have only Sun City West people playing with Sun City West people versus people from apparently the outside community. We don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to us as far as the tournament is concerned, and we're looking for that to still to be readdressed. There's another item in there that I look at for club meetings that you have in there that says, we have 4 club meetings annually, and one of them that you've got in there says, no catered food. We don't understand that. I mean, some clubs like to just do the hodgepodge, whatever you want to call it, bring in and do the mix and match where people bring in. We tend to do a catered item, and we bring in a caterer that goes in the social hall, and we have 4 meetings per year. The part of that meeting, most of that is a 1-hour business meeting for our club. That regulation now states, no, we can't have a facility that we're using that brings in a caterer. We don't understand that either. I don't know what's motivating that either. Lastly, our league play has been in position for 25 years, where we play with probably 8 to 10 other communities around here, you know, Pebble Creek, Festival, whatever, Grand and everything else. I don't know what's motivating the idea that we should not be able to keep up league play. It seems that we're either, one, looking for revenue for having these people pay that come and play here when we don't pay when we go out to their facilities. Or two, we just don't want people to be coming here and playing anymore. It's not a utilization problem. We're in off hours. We're playing, they're coming here. They're only coming here for specific tennis purposes. It's not like they're coming here and using pools and using other things that are available. So we're looking for those items to be addressed, and hopefully we have some dialogue that we can work back on this to make these things work so that we don't severely hamper our league play, like I said, which has been going on for years, and our tournament, which is a fundraiser and an excellent opportunity to showcase our facilities.
Okay. Sure, Jackie, you have a comment for that?
Yeah, I do. I think that, that there's a misunderstanding of how you've interpreted the RR&Ps as they've been written. The concerns you've raised have all been addressed. There is nothing in there that prevents you from having your tournaments, from having your catered meals, and from having people from other age-restricted communities playing tennis here.
So I'll
So,
look at them again. I mean, I saw the last revision, and I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box, but on the other hand, I tend to really understand what tends to be going on after doing this for years. So I'll look at it again and see if I can't get a better understanding of it. But that's the way I read it the last time through. And I know we've got the requirement to try to get the CR14 form, which was a new form in 2021, which required the other general managers in these other facilities to sign off so that we can have this type of reciprocal play. But it seems like this isn't considered reciprocal play. They want to have reciprocal play, it looked like, as being community to community. In other words, like we used to do with Pebble Creek, where they'd bring up 30 people and we'd go down there with 30 people, as opposed to league play, which is, men's, women's, 3-0, 3-5, 4-0, and you interchange in all those communities. So I'll look at it again, but.
the reciprocal agreement has not changed. That whole process, the concept of reciprocity has not changed. But the committee was very adamant about making sure that we did not, that they did not change and introduce new restrictions, undue restrictions.
I'll go back.
But
and
we
look
will
at-
discuss, this will be all discussed as we go through the RR&Ps during the second meeting of the month.
Okay, and I hope that we'll be able to make it at that. All right, thank you.
All right, moving along. Committee tour dates for properties and golf. Kay, do you have your dates available?
Yes, the Properties Committee will be doing our inspections of all Fork Rec Center properties the month of October. Thank you to Russ Boston for getting it all set up for us, and we're looking forward to coming back with a good list of what needs fixing and what capital projects that some of the clubs may have thought about with our input on those. So we're all ready for you. Everybody's been informed. Their calendars are marked. We're ready to go.
Okay, and I believe you offered to let any other board directors come on those too?
Those that have not done it before that wish to, if you haven't gotten the dates, come see me afterwards.
Okay, great, thank you. Harry?
Yes, we're going to do some tours of golf courses this year. I've talked with Todd, and thank you, Todd, for setting up the dates. We're going to start with September 29th, Echo Mesa and Trail Ridge. This will be for the board and the golf committee to go out and take a tour, and these courses will be closed at that time, so we won't be interfering with golfers. And then Friday, October 20th will be the second one. We'll do in Desert Trails in Grandview. And here again, they'll be coming out of overseeding, so we'll see how that is. Same rules, and after that, we'll decide if we're going to do the other three courses or not.
Okay, and Harry, I thought I heard at the meeting yesterday you did invite any of the directors that want to go on the tours with you? Okay, that's right. Okay, thank you. All right. 3.07, policy FA8 revisions, redlined. Director Williams?
Thank you. The Properties Committee has been reviewing the policy FA8, but I want to give you a little background. The operations staff for scheduling, member services, CCNR, Sports Pavilion, worked together over the summer to look at this policy and see if it was updated with proper description of the process and terminology and to bring it up to date. The intent being, of course, on this policy is that the card holders, owner members, associate members, or tenants who are in good standing to have their privilege of inviting guests to use association facilities as specified. The changes that you see before you on the screen are the final version of those 2 months or so of meetings and gathering input and making changes. At yesterday's meeting, there were just a couple of changes that were made. The first one that came from us was 4.1.1.2, and that was the addition of a sentence that says, guest ages requiring accompanying adults may vary at the Sports Pavilion and bowling policies and at the golf course per the golf policy. So letting it know that there are specific things unique to those two areas that are especially for those locations. And so I wanted to make sure everybody's aware that the FA8 is a facilities overall policy, but both of those two groups have their own set of policies. And I know that Lisa's been working on some of them for bowling, and so I just wanted to make that little announcement that that language is in there. Then on 4.1.2.2, guest ages requiring accompanying adults may vary at the Sports Pavilion and bowling policies and at the golf course per golf policies. So the change that we had made is that the main premise of it says, resident card holders, guests 16 years old and under, must at all times be accompanied by an adult ages 18 plus. And the last addition made yesterday was in adding 4.2.3, and that states a daily guest pass fee may not be used for participation in chartered club activities. Those are the changes that we're presenting to you that were forwarded from properties yesterday to the governing board.
Okay, we have any questions for Kay? Director Vines?
Thank you, President Hurley. Thank you, Kay, to you and your committee for working so hard on this over the summer and everybody else that had a hand in it. The question that I have is regarding 4.2.3. I think it needs to be expanded a little bit. One of the concerns I have is, hypothetically, regarding, say, pickleball, for example, say they're going to host a tournament and they have tournament play that may have an entrance fee per se. You cannot use the guest pass for this.
No, you cannot.
So I think we need to expand into this, and this is something that I think your committee might need to go back and look at.
How would you do that? What additional wording are you thinking of?
I think Jack
Jack?
has.
So, yeah, I happen to agree, chatting with Lisa, I think there are probably more conditions under which a guest fee is not appropriate for use of a facility, such as chartered clubs, such as the example that Lisa gave. So what you might want to do is research what those conditions are and then just list them here. So it would be clearer, they'd be identified, stand out separately, but an additional benefit is that they would then be plain to our monitors, who would then be able to see easily and clearly when a guest fee should be charged and when it should not.
Tim, if I might?
Sure.
One of the largest problems, as our committee sees it, and I think most of you would agree, is we have a lack of monitors stationed to make people follow the rules, for lack of a better description. For pickleball, for example, you have a monitor there from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. 4 days a week. The rest of the time, there is not a monitor out where they enter. It's an honor system if they go inside the aquatics building and check in with the monitor there. And that's just a small snapshot of areas where tennis courts the same way. We don't have monitors there except early in the morning. So the monitor thing becomes an issue, and it gets back to, if we can't enforce it, why do we write it? And that, I think, is something we need to give some thought to.
Jack?
Kay, all those are true statements. However, the lack of monitors should not prevent us from putting a policy into effect that can then be resolved either through hiring people or through technology or some other method. We should have the policy first to drive the solution of enforcement.
Okay. I'm inclined to say that you can't write in for every exception to the rules. You need a basic rule to go by. So do we have consensus to move this on to the board meeting? Barry? Christine? Okay. Alan? Okay, Kay, it's going to go back to your committee to do some work on this last sentence.
Thank you.
Sure. Director Rhodes?
Thank you. Hey, this is a really good job. I've read this thing several times, but I do agree with Director Vines that I'm not sure. I think this is one of those things that no good deed goes unpunished. No matter how well we think we've written it. To me, when I read that, the first thing that came to my mind was pickleball and tennis. And that to read this, it says that if it's a chartered club activity, and they're both chartered club activities, so that somebody would read that and just say, oh, nope, you can't do it. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to exempt those tournaments and those where they come in and pay to play tennis, or they pay to play pickleball. I think it's a significant enough issue that we at least need to make an attempt, if nothing else, to say pickleball tournaments, tennis tournaments, and others. I don't know if we can do a more comprehensive job of trying to identify those, but that's the only thing on this document that I have any objection to.
One of the things that was suggested at yesterday's meeting was suggested by the chairman of the Chartered Clubs Committee, who felt it was very important that we have in there that they mean not that last item, it's now 4.2.3. So perhaps I can talk with him directly and we can clarify and get together on the same page as to what your issues are, so we can revise the writing.
My issue is not the statement as it stands here. What my concern is the broadness, that it may need to be broadened, that chartered clubs and the use of guest passes is certainly one condition where a guest pass is inappropriate. All I'm suggesting is that there may be others that should be considered, and if they are decided to be included here, they should be included. That's my only content. Other than that, the rest of the policy is fine.
Director Schlemmer?
Listening to all of the discussion, I think maybe the approach we're taking on this is probably the wrong direction to go. What we're trying to do is take the policy and then write a provision in it that then limits out the situations where this policy should not apply. And I wonder if the better approach would be not to try to add a section that then opens up an entire new can of worms, but to redefine in the definition of where this policy will apply. What we're specifically trying to apply this to is when you bring a guest to enjoy the recreation center facilities. That's what we're trying to talk about here. And I wonder if we do that better by defining the policy for exactly what it is, rather than trying to make a list that tries to list everything that it is not, because we're going to error at some point and not list something, and then we've created a black and white document. So I think maybe we just change the approach.
And I'm having a little hard time following the rationale for making this change. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be more proper to put that into the RR&Ps, that guest passes cannot be used for charter club activities. Just leave it out of the guest pass fee altogether.
We can certainly do that. We can certainly do that.
Dr. Vines?
Thank you, President Hurley. Well, Jack was up speaking yesterday regarding this. I had a little bit of a discussion with GM Schwinn over this. So we talked about it. And there is some confusion on how we can go about clarifying. And I think the driving force is the problem is already there regarding the tournament play and how we address it. And I think when Kay and I originally had the meeting and the original paragraph that was in there, the sentence that was in there that was struck, that came up in the properties meeting yesterday, that I think Jack may have had heartburn with and then wanted it back in, and now we end up with this sentence. So I think that where we're trying to go is just a little more clarification with it, which I think it would possibly behoove Kay and Jack to sit down and maybe come up with some better clarification.
Clarification of, I'm
Well,
having trouble
we do
understanding
have,
clarification
we
of what?
have a problem out there. It's, the big white elephant is already there regarding
And what is that?
the tournament play that, and I think Jack is trying to fix this with the tournament play with pickleball or whatnot, somehow with the RR&Ps. But I think what Kay is trying to do with FA08 is capture anything that may get missed in the RR&Ps. And this guest pass has to be fixed. That sentence has to be fixed.
Sure, go ahead.
I
Hang on,
think-
so the general manager wants to weigh in.
I think by and large, this cardholder and the semantics that have been presented here are excellent up until everything's good talking about the recreation resident cardholders up until we get to 422 and 423. So we know about daily passes and that there's a big umbrella over everything that we do, and it all makes sense. When we start getting into club activity and the utilization of facilities, be it outside sports and that kind of thing, that's where we kind of get tripped up a little bit. And I want to refer back to Mr. Wambaugh's comments about tournaments and leagues. When we've been working with this for a while now, but when it comes to 4.2.3, a broad statement like that, the daily guest pass may not be used to participate in chartered club activities. We have a lot of chartered clubs ranging in for everything from sports to woodworking and the like. I don't believe that guests should have the ability to go into the metal shop with a guest and work with heavy equipment. I think that's a huge liability for us, and that is not really the intent of what these facilities are for. Whether you're working in stained glass or jewelry or wood shop or metal shop, guests should not, they can go visit per se, but they are not working with equipment. That's a little different than a guest coming to play tennis or a guest coming to play pickleball, right? They're actually participating in that activity, right? So there's a little bit of difference there that we're just trying to get a little bit of clarity on. On the reciprocal side, tournaments are not a problem. There's a tournament policy already in place. If chartered clubs want to have a sports tournament of some kind, be it softball, pickleball, tennis, ping pong, you name it, a room can be reserved as long as it's the charter club making that reservation, and we move on. I think we do limit how many tournaments they can conduct a year, so it's not a completely tournament-bound facility, but open to owner members to play. Outside people can come and play. They pay an entry fee. We don't typically charge a rental use for that facility for that day, and everything is fine. When it comes to leagues, we have the ability via reciprocal agreements. If a chartered club in Pebble Creek and a chartered club in Sun City West want to have a ping pong league or a softball something or other, they can do that, right? As long as their administration authorizes the fact that we can go over there and play, they come over here and play, there's no fees involved, and it's all good. It's a reciprocal agreement. Those are good. We're having difficulty getting those due to policies in other organizations that they really don't want other folks in. And that's kind of the struggle that we've been having. When leagues pop up that are non-club related, just individuals wanting to do that kind of thing, that's where I think Jack and his team basically said those are viewed as guests, and those guests should pay a fee at that point. And so that's kind of the clarity and what we're trying to get a hold of there. So that's where we struggle with, policies are great, but if we're the ones that have to implement that and we're confused and we don't know, then it's tough for us to abide by that. So it's just a matter of clarity. I think we need to get some more people in the room to chat about this a little bit. Where are we going? And yeah, my thought.
Okay, thank you. We're going to table this for right now until we can get a couple of heads together and meet with the general manager and his staff and work this out. So we're going to put this on hold until that happens. All right?
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Policy C05 discussion, guidelines for standing committee working groups. This is a new policy that we have. It was actually taken out of standing rule number 3 that dealt with committees. And there was a lot of confusion last year between subcommittees and working groups, and we decided last year on the language of calling them working groups because basically that's what they do. They get together, they analyze data, they look for alternatives, and they formulate a solution to go back to the committee. So what we did was we took that policy and tailored it for working groups, and the last bit of discussion that we had was dealing with Section 9. You can scroll up to that section. Directors acting as the standing group chair, committee chair, may act as an ex officio member to assist the working group, to set the working group's scope of work, to monitor the working group's progress, and to act as a resource for the working group. So, any discussion on this point? Okay, see none. Do I have consensus to move this to the governing board meeting for a vote? Okay, Karen, we're going to move this to the governing board meeting. All right, Elizabeth Akers update. Director Vines.
Thank you, President Hurley. So in June at our last meeting, I presented an FR1 to the governing board, and Carl Wilhelm is currently working on that, and he will give us a little more of an update when he does his capital improvements, and we'll move forward on that a little bit. He's still working on that. So
Okay.
that's where we're at.
All right, we'll hear from Carl when he comes up. Any questions? Okay. Lisa, you have another one, the bowling policies?
Thank you, President Hurley. We've been working over the summer on all of the bowling policies, and mainly with creating the buckets, and we are presenting them in order, but what we have done is created BO2 is a new bowling policy, and the committee, the Sports Pavilion Committee, will be working on this in the October Sports Pavilion meeting. So we'll be reviewing this, and at that point, if the committee deems it appropriate, we will move it forward to the governing board after we review it.
Okay, so this will come back to the next workshop?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Just an editorial comment on these bowling changes. This and the policy FA08 were an attempt to try to synchronize all of the various language we had across our policies, across our handbooks, and across all sorts of other literature that we have to kind of synchronize what it actually means to be a guest and what guests can and cannot do. So this is still all part of that process. Okay. Next, fiscal year 23-24 capital update, facilities operations. Carl Wilhelm.
Good morning,
Morning.
President and Directors. We are kicking off a new capital season. It's been my pleasure to provide this so far to charter clubs, properties committee, the golf committee, and the sports pavilion committee. Next week is going to be the first review with BNF. And your scheduling allows for this to be presented today to you for your review. So what we've done this year, very similar to last year's budget presentation, you have a document here that includes new items from the reserve study, separated by things that myself and other department managers manage, and separated again by golf. And then the final category is allowances. What I'd like to...
Excuse me, can I interrupt you? Were you going to do the capital update from last year, the update on those projects?
Oh, I certainly can.
Yes, please. Let's do that before we get into the new stuff. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. Sorry if I missed the agenda line item. This is the same report given to the Properties Committee, also at the other committees. This is the work performed. It includes both the FY2022-23 carryover projects, and I've highlighted those, italicized those per project, and then also the work to date on the FY23-24 budget. Over at R.H. Johnson, we have completed the maintenance yard, storage roof, and gate enclosure. We reutilized the connexes that we owned, a couple of connexes that were purchased, and we put a nice roof and gate feature on there to protect our vehicles, golf carts, and that has worked out quite well, and we've had no issues of vandalism or theft since then. The tennis tower partition was completed on 6/14. This was in an effort to divide the room in half with a nice glass partition so that the tennis club in rec center operational hours that were closed, we don't have a monitor, that the tennis tower is still open and operational for the tennis club to use as their small meeting room and sign-in point, instead of having the equipment sitting outside down below. Social hall hardwoods, table, tennis, ping pong, and racquetball hardwoods were all completed between 7/6 and 7/12. We do yearly seal and coats. The only difference is racquetball had a full sand and seal, taken all the way down to the fresh hardwood. Metal shop, 1 year ago, received a new parking lot. This year's asphalt seal and stripe is the first coating. That was completed on 7/9. The swim and fitness pool deck at R.H. Johnson received the same rubber decking as Kuntz, and that was completed on 8/11. Our maintenance yard is in progress with a property fence line being installed. It's 350 feet of fence with some gates, 900 little security pickets, so it takes a while to fabricate, and that is in progress. I'm expecting that done in the next few weeks. I'm happy to report that even though this report says in progress, the sports pavilion is fully open. We had a very successful lanes replacement, ball returns replacement, and extra project of flooring replacement in there during its closure. We maintain that project within budget, even after finding some flooring issues, lane flooring issues, and some of the results of the heavy equipment and materials coming in created a project, and we had to change the flooring at the foyers, and then the elevation changes between the bowlers area LVT and the new laying out of the lanes. We implemented 1 year earlier a LVT project to replace all the LVT in the bowlers area, and it turned out beautiful. That was completed last week, and we are open. Parking lot 3, asphalt and mill and replacement. That project is in progress. You can see the progress as you walk out today. Tentative completion is, I'm shooting for between the 19th and the 22nd of September. The bocce facility turf replacement is also in progress. All demo is complete. The courts are in excellent condition after removing all the artificial turf and Trex boards. Manufacturers of the Trex products, there was not enough materials in state to have a same color boarding, which is visible to the community. It's exposed. So we had to go to the manufacturer and have it fabricated and being shipped here. So the general contractor, myself, and the bocce club have all communicated the adjusted schedule, and we are on track, but it's probably going to be down until early November. Over at Kuntz also was a project that we had a new asphalt put in about 18 months ago, and it got its first seal and stripe. That was completed on 8/18. Over to Palm Ridge, the Aquatic Center entry, stairs, loft, and flooring was completed on 6/27 with new carpet. There too, the Summit Hall hardwoods were completed on 7/26. Summit Hall window shades and blinds replacement. This is a project that is in progress. They were initially supposed to be done at end of August. There was a measurement error on their half. And I think we're back on schedule for September 28th. The pickleball facility received new windscreens. That was completed on 8/30. Stardust Pro Shop parking lot asphalt seal and stripe was completed 7/30. Deer Valley received its first coating after last year's new install, also completed on 8/5. The Grandview parking lot reports here as project in progress. However, it is complete. It was completed ahead of schedule. We didn't have as many obstacles after the stabilization. It went pretty smoothly to extend any time. So the restaurant, I believe, is back open, and facilities maintenance and myself are working with the golf lab to get them restored after a little project that they have going on inside for improvements. The list reports facilities maintenance updates. We replaced one HVAC unit at Kuntz Softball Clubhouse. Facilities maintenance replaced 3 units at Pebblebrook Pro Shop, 3 units at Kuntz Women's Boomers, installed backstroke warning flags at Kuntz and Beardsley Pools, repaired 2 major electrical shorts, one at Lower R.H. Johnson from the Sports Pavilion to the Activity Center, and the other was from the Social Hall to the Lapidary, and Cliff reported today the positive outcome with the insurance claim. Repaired 3 major water leaks at R.H. Johnson Social Hall, Main Line, Beardsley Park, and Kuntz between the pool and the softball field. Installed an outdoor beer cooler for Lizard Acres. I will be putting a roof over that cooler due to the temperatures that were incurred over the summer. It's very hard to maintain temperature in that cooler. So we have a nice metal shed roof going over the top of that soon. We installed 2 ADA openers, 2 at Beardsley, R.H. Johnson Broadcast Club, including a ramp system, and the Kuntz Art Club. We are currently painting the exterior of Palm Ridge facility. Russ Boston reported that the activity center is complete and moving on to the swim and fitness center. This will be an ongoing project for a while. Currently adding barbecues at Beardsley Park. 1 is complete, 2 more are coming. And lastly, facilities maintenance completed 2,662 MPS work orders since last year.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Carl? Carl, I just wanted to tell you that I am personally impressed with how you keep that many balls in the air at one time. And wanted to tell Mr. Boston that he now has 2 people in his fan club.
3, I joined 2.
Okay, all right, Carl, you may now proceed.
Okay, back to the 2024-25 proposed capital improvements projects. Again, this is the initial list for the governing board and all committees to review. This document is the identical document that'll be provided at every committee every month for the next 2 months. Next month, you can expect there'll be a column B, if you will, to the costing, and it'll say October changes. You'll see another in November showing November changes. This consists of 3 major areas: new, The RS&T reserve study items for repair and replacement, only divided by color. For the blue is things that I manage along with other department managers, and then Todd and Pat's world in green. And then the final area is allowances. So back in July, I was a little caught off guard with the initial list that was put together. It was in the realm of $15 million. That's a pretty significant amount over average. So over the summer, Russ Boston, myself, other managers, we reviewed all of the items that came from the tool, because quite honestly, not a lot of the items were impacted from new requests, except for maybe a conversation about lawn bowling. With that being said, we did a real hard look and review of all the repair and replacement items that meet their useful life per the tool, and says, you know, the lecture hall's carpet is due for replacement. But as you see, when we walk it, the lecture hall's carpet is in great condition, and we assign it a new useful life. And again, kind of push that to a future year. I've included a column for that so that you can see how we've gone from $15 million initial list to a $10,586,000, which is slightly below last year's requested budget. And I'd like to review some of the new items and then just give you the opportunity to ask any questions, since you've had this document and have most likely been to a few of the committees for my larger presentations.
Okay.
Over in the new column, we have R.H. Johnson Sports Pavilion Lizard Acres bar room renovation. I am currently working on that, assembling a small team for design and equipment considerations. We'll do that over the next few weeks. I'll be inviting a couple people from the committee that the Sports Pavilion Committee put together as a subcommittee, some staff members, and then when we get that information in the next couple weeks, we'll start handing it to an architect.
Okay.
Right now, I perceive that to stay at the budgeted amount until any new ideas or relevances come up. Facilities maintenance is in need of a tractor piece of equipment with a backhoe on it. We don't currently have that in our tool chest, if you will. The cost of renting this equipment and how often it has been needed as of late warrants the request. We are in the process right now with the library, R.H. Johnson Library expansion renovation discussion from last year, where Katie and her team of librarians have come and presented the ideas for the future for the library. We are currently out and have reviewed an RFI for architects. We did this last week, or early this week. I believe we have settled on a beginning architectural design team to help us get deliverables out of the FY23-24 budget, so that we can kind of lock down this price on what's the next step to have library expansion discussions.
Okay.
Tennis facility at Kuntz. General manager, myself, accounting team, others, we've discussed, is it time to renovate the tennis facility and make its use to the public again? The determination is to ask for architectural and design documents in the next budget, so that I can have discussions that talk with the details of taking 6 courts, converting them to post-tension slabs, as we did at tennis, maintaining a 50-50 balance for pickleball and tennis. If you can say 50-50, 3 courts would equal up to 12 pickleball courts, or 9 in a perfect scenario, 2 tennis and a social gathering area. Moving on to Beardsley Park, we are interested in having an iron fence, 4 foot tall with gates for vehicles to enclose that park, have better and more permanent access points for events, daily use. R.H. Johnson Metal Shop is one of our only buildings that does not have a Climatech HVAC control system, and that is needed by facilities maintenance to make sure that the operations for HVAC is being done efficiently and correctly at the metal shop. That communication ties directly back to facilities maintenance offices, and all of our air conditionings virtually are controlled from there. The flatbed trailer for R.H. Johnson is for a forklift. Ours is wore out. The forklift is heavy, it's get used often, and it's aged out, and we need a new trailer there. And then the only CR13 request that we had is from the Leather Club. They have expanded need for how they do their leather work, and their exhaust system is not to the correct size for how they're growing, so they need a new exhaust system. Again, the blue section is all reserve capital. R&R, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to ask them. The green section is the same, but from facilities maintenance, from golf and golf ops. And then the final category is allowances. We've bumped allowances by 20,000 average for inflationary conversation purposes. So these allowances are for unknown items that come up in the year, categorized possibly ADA compliant, well pumps, safety and structural integrity, things such as that. And then finally, the gray box at the end of this document will give you an idea of the homework that was done over the last 2.5 months of things that we reviewed that were initially on this list. Probably the most significant is lawn bowling. It's a conversation that I believe that we all need to have throughout this year because in the blue R&R, there's a line item for lawn bowling about fixing a sewer line, repairing the concrete after that repair, and preparing for a future lighting discussion due to the storm damage that took down a few of our lights and we removed the rest for safety purposes. A CR13 request was provided for this year by lawn bowling. We had a great meeting with them. We had a meeting with what their intent for having turf courts or the grass courts converted to turf. We found and came to a conclusion that there's a better year to have that done. They all agreed. So these items aren't going away in the gray area, so please review them, and if you have any questions for me in the future, but there are some things that we should talk about so that we can make project planning happen smoothly.
Okay. Any questions for Carl? Director Rhodes?
Carl, would you clarify for me the second series of boxes in blue? Those are all R&R? Those are all repair and replacement?
Yeah, blue and green is all repair and replacement.
Have you gone through each one of these and looked at them? I mean, let's just pick the very first thing on the list, the softball outfield fence replacement.
Yes,
have you gone through that and looked at it and said, yes, this needs to go now. We can't extend it out for another year or 2 years or whatever. Have you done that for all of these items?
We have done that for all of these items. You bring up a great point on the softball
I'm
field.
not trying to pick on that one. Let me tell you that.
But it's important because that is an item that the governing board decided to push 1 year and bring up for discussion again for this year. So here it is. I'm currently working on best design so that you have the accurate pricing information. This is the information from last year. Ideas of that particular project were to maybe find a cost-saving opportunity and do the raising of the fence line from 24 to 30 feet with fabric mesh netting instead of fencing, chain link fencing. So those will be the updates that you hear over the next couple months. But otherwise, everything else has been in the tool, it's met its useful life, it's been reviewed by staff, and it's here for your review.
Okay. General Manager?
Carl, I was just going to ask you if you would please maybe just touch on the top tickets of both of those items. And you talked about the outfield fence, so that's all good. In the area of golf, and Todd, as I know, is in the building, but the number one item on that list is the kind of the mandate from Arizona Department of Water Resources and Water Conservation and the replacement of an old irrigation system and the removal of turf. That's somewhat of a mandate that we're facing, and over the next every other year, typically we're going to be seeing large irrigation projects come up. It won't be like that after we get through 2027, 2029 type thing. and all of our golf courses will have been renovated to new irrigation systems and the required turf removed that the state is requiring. So that's a bit of a mandate. It is a sizable expense. If that wasn't there, that $10 million total would be down to 6. But that's just where we are today in today's age.
And I also piggyback off of that and say that every month I do re-review this list with new information, updated costing. I've already had a meeting with our roofing consultants, and a handful of these large dollar items for roofs, we are in great shape. So again, this information comes out because of governing board timelines and all that. Every month you'll see the new revised, but you can expect that significant amount of dollars will be coming off of this for just our roofing conversations. So, and I'll have that ready for the October.
Okay, any other questions, Director Vines?
Thank you, President Hurley. First off, Carl, thank you to you and the staff that, y'all did an outstanding job on this. So much information, and you did a great job reducing the dollar amount and pushing out what you could. So we greatly appreciate that. A couple of quick questions. First, the pickleball courts in the blue section for the resurfacing of courts 1 through 10, just for informational purposes, how often do those courts have to be resurfaced?
Approximately every 8 years.
8 years?
Approximately.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a useful life set at 8 years.
Okay.
We have seasonal changes that sometimes make them a little bit short, or and then we have sometimes where the court is just in excellent condition. We get an extra year or so out of it. So
Great.
but they were walked and reviewed.
Super. And then the other question that I have, and I'm sure you have this information, and I know even though it's in Todd's group, but the line item for the 23 pieces of equipment, do we have a itemized list of equipment list for that we can get?
Accounting has a complete itemized list on that.
Okay.
And Todd and Dan Maurer work very directly with Pete,
Super.
and I believe Cliff too.
Okay.
So if that ever was needed,
So if we could get a copy of that itemized list. I never question anything that Todd and Pat put in this area because they do such a thorough job in what they request. But it'd be nice to see the list itself, but thank you.
do you want that list, Tim, to the director or yourself?
Just send it to me and I'll distribute it.
Very good.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Christine?
Thank you, President Hurley. Director Vines actually asked a couple of the ones I had. First of all, just to add my kudos as well, to amplify what Lisa said. I love the fact that you added the committee columns, right? This will show not only us, but also all of our fellow members and residents, which of those committee meetings to follow along with as we discuss this and get more detail as we go. And let's see. I think you had also, I believe you had noticed, or you had said in your presentation that as we go through successive months, as this number changes a bit, you'll be adding another column. Did I hear that?
Yep,
Okay.
every season where it says proposed, every month where it says proposed cost, you'll see an additional column added so that you can see the pluses and minuses. Not everything goes down.
Yeah. Well, although we wish it did, it may also increase. And that was part of, I know that we've talked about the fact that we have a study going on right now, the design that's going on for Echo Mesa. So when are the results of is that sometime this year? I'm sorry to ask you.
Todd, speak to all golf. I just kind of
And
carry the
forgive
day
me,
in the
did that come up in
conversation.
your committee meeting or, well, we'll let Todd answer. That will help us understand when we'll see some of those changes impact. Thanks, Todd.
All right, good morning. The irrigation project and turf removal project over at Echo Mesa is scheduled for, I believe, April of 2025, and we've already started the design work, so we have that in the works right now. And Gary Brawley has been on site, and we've walked the golf course, and we have a good idea. We don't have the drawings yet, but we will get that. So that is work in progress right now.
That will, his findings, I'm sorry, I have to go this way, I'm supposed to go this way. I'm new. So the findings will help us understand how that number may change.
Yes.
Based on that.
Yes.
That was my question.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
the findings of the firm will be sometime during the next few months? Is that?
Yeah, I would think that's safe to say.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, anybody else? We're going to see these several more times before we actually have to take action on them. We will be voting on every item over $100,000, and we'll be reviewing every item over $50,000. So we will see these many more times. We have any questions from the audience for Carl on the capital budget for next year? I know it seems like we just passed a budget and we're already working on it.
Well, and that's a little plug that I like to say. We have a very short period of time to get all this information together and accurate, so.
Okay, we do have a question from a YouTuber, so.
So this question comes to us from Scott, I hope I pronounced this correct, Oblander. And he is asking, what is the reason for post-tension slabs for tennis courts? And he referenced rec number 139839 as his rec number.
Great question. So our original builds are asphalt base courts. In fact, asphalt with a coating on it. After some time, they went to a overlayment product called Pro Bounce, which is basically a matted sand and fabric layer, and that allowed the rec centers to get its next 15, 20 years out of those courts. And at some point, they become hollow and just wore out. Post-tension slab is, I'm going to say, the most cost-effective and best product to put down on top of already compacted asphalt and have a great life. I mean, really, no life to be determined. I mean, most of our homes and commercial buildings are built with a post-tension slab, so basically it's a intricate rubber band system of steel cables that are compressed to such a high strength that it holds concrete together forever. Forever is a big word, but holds concrete together excellently, and was super successful in the tennis renovation for R.H. Johnson 7 years ago, or 6.5 years ago. And it's really the most modern and most cost-effective way of refurbishing those courts.
Okay, thank you. And just another editorial comment, the capital budget as proposed right now is 10.6. That is right in line with what our budget was last year.
Correct.
Right. Great. Okay, thank you, Carl.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. All right, the last order of business is a revision for Bylaw 4.07, General Manager's Operational Meetings, and I will describe what that is. We talked about this at the end of last year. This was actually published. We always have to publish bylaw changes 30 days in advance before we vote on them. It was published last year, or last summer, I should say. And basically what this does is general operational meetings used to be held, but a couple of years ago, one of the presidents decided to eliminate them. And they went to meetings with the general manager where it was either just the president or the officers would meet with them, and then they would try to disseminate that information out to all the other directors. Well, I thought they were of such importance that we reinstituted them last year and have gotten very good feedback. And it's more of an informal meeting. It's not held in the lecture hall. It's held in a smaller meeting room. It is open to the public. We do publish an agenda as always. But it's more of an informal roundtable discussion where the general manager presents basically what's going on with the operational side of the business. And we're able to ask questions, and it's more of an open dialogue. So basically what this bylaw revision is just to change the verbiage to bring the description of the meetings up to date to what how they're actually happening now. So they're up there. This has been discussed at the end of last year, but are there any questions from the board? No? Okay, do I have consensus to move this to the governing board meeting for a vote? Okay, Karen will move this to the meeting. All right. We're at the point where we can have director comments. Christine, do you have any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Terry? Director Vines?
Thank you, President Hurley. Hey, I just want to say thank you to Cliff, Carl, and staff, everybody that was involved in putting this budget together, the start. This is by far, in my third year on the board, and this is one of the best budgets I have seen coming out as a first pass, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Nope.
Yes, I just want to echo the comments of my colleague. I really appreciate the amount of work that has gone into the capital budget proposals that you've outlined. And I think it really also reflects the commitment that the entire Sun City West organization has to continue to maintain this fantastic community. So I appreciate the time and effort put into that.
Okay, thank you. Director Rhodes?
Couple things. I really want to commend the folks responsible for the whole irrigation project. I mean, I look back to Todd Patty, and there's so many other people, I'm almost afraid to even try to identify them. But that has been nothing short of a heroic, spectacular issue, and I want to thank you for it. Cliff and Carl, kudos, really good job. The other thing I'm very excited about is, Tim mentioned it when we first started the meeting. We did it in Budget and Finance on the September 5th, but this whole idea of having our homeowners have the capacity to contact us during the meeting and to interact with us. I don't know what Alan has been hearing over there, but I know that when we did it in Budget and Finance, Christine did it for us, and we had a lot of very positive feedback, so I'm excited about that. I think it helps us with our transparency. Thank you very much.
Director Williams?
No comment. Aloha.
Hello, enjoy. Director Hammond? Okay. Yes, you may.
Thank you. I just want to reach out and thank the outreach that we've received from the community relative to one of Mr. Patty's employees after suffering an incident with a bee attack. It's made statewide news. It's been on USA Today. It's just absolutely a horrific event that took place. But I am very happy to say that Mr. Pena will be back to work on Monday, doing some light duty. Yeah, thank you. And hats off to him, man. And I did have an opportunity to chat with him the other day. He is looking well, considering all that he went through, and that was just an absolutely horrific event, but he is back. Thank you.
Good. We now have opportunity for anyone in the audience to make a comment. If you would step up to the microphone, sign in, give us your name and rec number, please.
Hi, Lynn Kellis, 129120, and I just wanted to say thank you, whoever picked the contractors that are doing the repaving over at Beardsley, because they are kicking it. They're doing an excellent job. And man, it just looks like pretty much what they've got left is striping. They just really went after it, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No, Suzanne Jones, 110391. No meeting would be complete without a plug for the raffle car that ARC is going to be giving away to some wonderful winner. But now it's not just the raffle car that you might win, because we also have a second prize of $500 or a third prize of $200. So you see, you have 3 opportunities to win with only 1 ticket. And 1 ticket will cost you $20. What a great investment. But you could get 6 of them for $100. So I just happen to have tickets here. And anyone who wants a ticket, please see me. Thank you.
Did you and Tom ever sell snake oil?
No comment.
All right, thankful. Any other comments? Okay, we have another one. Go
I
ahead.
don't know that I actually need to report this, but in spirit of appreciation for the explanation, our prior commenter did say thank you for explaining the post-tension question.
Good. Okay, our next workshop meeting is on October 13th at 9 o'clock here in the lecture hall. And our next regular meeting is a week from Thursday, and it's 9 o'clock here in the lecture hall. Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to immediately open up a special meeting because we have 2 things that we do need to vote on. So, thank you. this special meeting to order at 10:36. There's really only two orders of business, and that is two facts and findings for the Pebblebrook well pump replacement and the Grandview Golf Course parking lot asphalt stabilization. Todd, are you going to do Pebblebrook?
I am.
Okay.
All right. Good morning again. And I know I'm sure you have the facts and findings in your packet. So it kind of explains what the issue was with the Pebblebrook well pump. If I could go back to the beginning a little bit, about a month ago, we were in the maintenance yard where the well pump is located, and it was making a high-pitched noise. And so I know that that's usually the bearings or the upper bearings were starting to go out. So we said, well, we'll just keep an eye on it. The noise actually got louder. And then I looked at the meter, and it wasn't the production of the well. Normally runs about 1,000 to 1,100 gallons per minute, and the production dropped down to about 850 gallons per minute. So when you see that, you know that you do have a problem. So we, at that time, we decided to call in the pump company, and we needed to pull the well and find out what was actually going on. And especially before going on into overseeding, it's important to have a well that works, and so we have water for growing. So anyway, I'll just give you a quick update. As of this morning, it looks like they should have the well pump up and running by the end of the day. They weren't. I was over there this morning, and they were just showing up. So they had a few more sections of column pipe to install, but they thought if all goes well, we'll have water running tonight. A little detail on what was replaced. We replaced 620 feet of the inner column pipe with all the bearings. We replaced the 7-stage bolt assembly with the impellers. They rebuilt the 250 horsepower electric motor. They did a rewind and a dip and a bake on that. Other miscellaneous parts that are involved in the well. They brushed and belled the well, meaning they take like a bottle brush down through there. After they get everything out of the hole, it's a big bottle brush, and they take it down there and they spin it through the casing because it has perforations, and that cleans all that. So they after they do that, they'll bell all that stuff out of the bottom. And then they'll let the water settle a little bit so it clears up, and then they'll do a video of that to see if they made any progress as far as cleaning out the perforations. During that time of the video, they did find 2 areas in the casing that were broken where we needed to patch that. And so they did that earlier this week, and that's all done. Just so you know, the motor has a 2-year warranty, and all the other parts that are involved in the well are at a 1-year warranty. And just a couple facts about the well. It is at 1,000 feet deep, drilled. Static water level was recorded at 363 feet, which is the water level when the pump's not running. And then the bowl assembly is set at a depth of 630 feet. So we should be in good shape after they get everything up and running. And so hopefully we don't have to get back into that for a while. You know, with the well pump, it's so hard, you know, it's more of a visual and like the sound that you have. Everything's underground. It's not like your car when the engine light comes on, you pop the hood and you kind of see what's going on. You don't have that with a well pump unless you pull the whole thing out of the ground. And then you're without water for several days, and then the expense of doing that. So hopefully we don't have to get in there for quite some time, and we'll be set. So I'd like to mention at this time we were receiving water from Stardust and Echo Mesa, so we didn't miss a beat as far as the irrigation. And those 2 courses were able to water their golf courses normally during this time too. And that's really that's the beauty of that interconnecting pipeline that we have that runs through City West. If we didn't have that, we would have been in a little bit of trouble. You know, how would we have gotten water over to that golf course to water? So yes. So that's a good feature that we have here in the community, is that interconnecting pipeline.
What's the condition of that pipeline?
It's not the greatest. We've had some failures with that. I don't like to use it unless absolute emergency, like what we had here, right. You know? And so, yeah, it runs throughout Sun City West, R.H. Johnson, Stardust Boulevard, up El Mirage. It's all over the place. And so, you know, it's old. The valves is what gives us problems sometimes when you're opening a series of valves or closing valves. Sometimes they strip open or strip shut, and then we have some of those that leak at some time. And so those repairs, especially if they're in the middle of the intersection, that's, you know, it's $30,000 repair. that they have to do, come in and tear the road out. So we don't like to use that pipeline unless we absolutely have to.
Right. What kind of maintenance is there on a well pump?
The drip oil, and that's about it. They'll come out and they'll do some service on it, check the amps and all that on the motor and stuff like that, and that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dick?
Todd, out of idle curiosity, what's the expected life, what's the life expectancy of that motor?
I would say probably 6 to 8 years, just based on some of the other locations. Yep. Yeah.
If it's anything like the pump on my swimming pool, which I'm sure there's a lot of correlations there,
And
it's about a $1,200 repair.
Yeah. And you know, this summer, those well pumps really got to work out. Some of those were running 24/7. You know, we didn't receive any rainfall, and then we had some of the high temperatures in July, record-breaking heat, and so they really worked hard this year. They really did. So,
Okay, so the fact and finding is for $122,038.
yes.
Right. Any more questions? Lisa?
Thank you, Tim. Todd, so the question, to follow up on the question that Tim asked about the maintenance, so how often does the maintenance have to be done?
We do a preventative maintenance on our wells twice a year.
Okay, and is that something you and your crew do, or do you have
No,
to have
that's
a
an
company
outsourced
come
company.
in?
That's Weber Water Resources that come in and do that. And they also do our pump stations, our distribution centers as well.
Okay, and do we pay, is that included in the cost of putting in that well pump, or do we pay for that every time?
That's
the
a
servicing-
separate service that we pay for, contract service,
And
yes.
do you, just rough estimate, what is the cost of that, or no?
Boy, I'd hate to throw out a number.
Even
I'm not
guess?
sure what that is.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
Okay, anybody else? We're gonna take a voice vote. Oh, Harry, I'm sorry.
This would be probably more of a question for Cliff. It says here 122,000 in allowance funding. So that says it's coming out of the allowance count? Okay.
Yes.
So
Allowance count for this year? For
This
23,
year?
24?
23, 24?
Yes, it'll be coming out of the allowance account. We identified 95,000 for a well pump, so it'll come out of the total 400,000 that's in the budget. But yes, it'll come out of fiscal year 24, this year's allowance is
23,
20.
24. Okay,
Fiscal year 23, 24 allowance.
got it.
Okay, Christine, a yes vote means you support the facts and finding, a no vote says you do not.
Yes.
Harry?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Alan?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes,
Okay?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Okay, it passes. Who's gonna do the
Thank you.
Grandview? Thank you, Todd.
Why not?
Hello, everyone. Grandview Pro Shop parking lot asphalt mill and replacement project scheduled for fiscal year 23-24. Came under some inflationary pressures just at the bidding process. So the contingency for the conversation of soil stabilization was pretty much gobbled up. And quite honestly, didn't really expect 100% stabilization based on the history of the other golf courses. So I made that comment known during our budget cycle last year, that I put in larger contingencies for our Beardsley and our R.H. Johnson parking lots. But on the golf courses, I was very conservative. Didn't work out for me this year. So Grandview didn't work out for us as a project either. It was plagued by just a ton of issues. So we removed that asphalt, and underneath the asphalt was Del Webb's electrical lines that were weren't buried. They were just virtually underneath the asphalt. The same with original water lines, and then a phone line. So we had a lot of extras in labor from facilities maintenance. They saved the day. I got to make sure I put that plug in there. They came in with some rented equipment, backhoe, some assistance from Todd's group and the contractor that's working at Grandview, and we dug deep trenches and dropped the conduits and replacement pipe that was broken. And then the final outcome was also the stabilization portion, which That course required 100% stabilization. It was just pumping everywhere. It makes sense now that I understand the course elevations a little bit more. If you go to Grandview, you'll see a lot of the irrigation watering goes to the parking lot and drains through the parking lot. So once the asphalt was removed, it was pumping like Play-Doh, and hence the reason for the facts and findings. I will give you a positive news of, even though we're asking for this additional change orders 1 and 2, 1 for the stabilization and then 2 per contract. We always put curbing, any sign damage replacement. It's unknown until the project's over, so I always incur a change order, but we wanted to be transparent and say what the 2 orders are together. R.H. Johnson came in at about 50% stabilization, so we have significant savings from there. And Beardsley came in at 0 stabilization needed. So we have amazing savings there for that project. So on the 28th, we start Trail Ridge. So we're subject to this conversation again. That was a minimal soil stabilization cost projected for that. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope we have a good tear out there. So I am coming with you with the facts and findings for the 62,673 to fully stabilize Grandview's parking lot.
Okay, obviously, the pump situation was an emergency situation at the golf course. You need to get that fixed. Explain why this was an emergency during the summer.
Yeah, so all these asphalt projects happen at the same time. No one vendor won any one more than one. Well, that's not true. We had Sunland Asphalt win Grandview, YSC Paving won R.H. Johnson, and Calvary Paving won Beardsley and Trail Ridge. 3 of those projects virtually going on at the same time, plus all the other work that these vendors use. Soil stabilization comes down to a subcontractor. None of these vendors own that equipment. They all subcontract when the occasion arises. So they're always competing against a calendar. So if somebody else needs their equipment and they came to the table first, they get it. If I had a 1-day window, I called frantically to Bill and Cliff and said, could you please contact President Hurley and asked for a facts and findings. Otherwise, we would have lost the asphalt date for 6 weeks. So if I didn't have it done in a decision in 2 days, we were going to lose the asphalt for 6 weeks, and that would have probably taken us beyond the reopening.
And that's after it had been stripped, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And any other questions on this facts and findings? Okay, we're going to start this in that time. A vote of yes is to pass the fact and finding, no is to not pass it. Terry?
Yes.
Kay?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes, and thank you, Carl.
Yes.
Ellen? Jack?
Yes.
Director Vines?
Yes.
Terry? Christine?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any comments about this special meeting? If not, we're going to adjourn at 10:50. Thank you.